Hey, welcome back. Today, let's talk about common pitfalls for beginner programmers and how you can avoid them. Now, as a beginner programmer, I know that it can be quite easy to fall into certain traps that can make your coding journey more difficult than it needs to be. But yeah, we're here to help, and I'm here to help you avoid those pitfalls and make your learning experience as smooth as possible. And let's start with pitfall number one, and that's not understanding the importance of good code structure and code organization. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, it seems like a small detail, but having a clear structure in your code, making it easy to read and understand, makes it also easy to fix bugs and make updates. Even if you're just starting out, take your time to format your code consistently, using comments to explain what each section of the code is doing. Think about how you name your variables, how you name your methods, your functions, how you name your classes if you're doing object-oriented programming, which is quite typical even for beginner programmers. So really take some time to think about how you structure your code, and that makes it much easier to understand what's going on, to find errors, and maybe even to hand your code over to somebody else. Maybe you need to ask for help somewhere online, and if your programming if your variable names don't make any sense, it takes time to rewrite the code, to explain it to somebody else. And yeah, if you're revisiting your code after a couple of weeks, chances are that you have forgotten about it and you don't really know what it does. And if you took the time to comment everything and make variable names and method names speak for themselves, it makes it much easier really to get into the code again. So another pitfall to watch out for is just testing the, as we call it, happy path in your program. Your program takes some kind of input data, modifies it, does some work on it, and outputs some data. And if you just using the input data that's sort of expected, and check if your program is doing the right thing, then it's quite easy for your program to crash if you haven't tested any special cases, any edge cases. What if the user doesn't enter her name or her age? Or what if he just presses enter, or exceeds the maximum amount of characters that are allowed, or restarts the program? Does it still work in these conditions? So before you really publish your stuff, before you show it to somebody else, make sure to test your code with different scenarios, different inputs, and this will help catch you any errors and bugs before they might become a bigger problem. Another thing that you shouldn't really fall into, a pitfall, is you shouldn't get discouraged when you encounter an error or a bug or any kind of problem. This is just a normal part of the coding process, and it's a valuable learning opportunity. That's the way that I would address it. It's a learning opportunity to understand the problem and to understand where it's coming from, and to understand how it came to be and how you can fix it, and maybe even how you can avoid it in your coding journey later on. Another pitfall that I really want to warn you is to learn too many programming languages or just too many concepts at once. IT and software development is such a big area, and it's easy and can be tempting to want to learn everything at once. And you see the latest mobile app technology, and maybe even game on one side, and there's some data analysis stuff, some machine learning, some AI, and you want to do it all at the same time. It's really important to focus on one thing at a time. Focus on one language, stick to it, learn it, understand it before you move to the next. And even with a programming language, it doesn't really matter which one you choose to start with. I'll tell you a secret. Of course, there are popular programming languages. Like the top three are still JavaScript, Java, and Python. And if you choose one of them, chances are that it's easy to adapt what you learned to any other language. But even if you just used some obscure niche language, or maybe you're just interested in iOS development, you start with Swift as a language. Or you want to get going into Android development, start with Kotlin, because that's the cool new thing to do instead of Java. Even that, then focus on that and learn one thing at a time. Do not overwhelm yourself with too many things at once. And finally, and I mentioned this before, don't be afraid to ask for help. Look for resources online. There are plenty of stuff and portals and discussion forums and stuff like Stack Overflow or Reddit or even Facebook groups where you can ask for help. So these are just a few of the pitfalls and how to avoid them. The most important message that I want to get across to you is keep learning, keep coding. You will get better at it every hour, every day that you focus on it, and you're going to avoid those pitfalls in the future.